Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and this video is the next in my Stephen King series, where I'm reading everything I can get my hands on in order of publication. And I'm moving on in this video to his 19th, at least in the bibliography that I put together, so can't guarantee there aren't any that I missed, but I tried to be very thorough, and I think I at least came really, really close. And so number 19 on my list was published in 1972, in February of 1972, in Cavalier magazine, which was a skin magazine, men's magazine. And it is titled Suffer the Little Children. Now, of course, I've said before, a lot of authors published in the skin magazines starting in the late 1950s because, number one, a lot of them appeared. Number two, they paid better than the science fiction pulps. And number three, they were starved for content. They couldn't just fill the whole magazine with pictures of girls. They wanted to have some semblance of being a real magazine, so they wanted authors, and they all wanted to be like Playboy. Playboy, of course, published a lot of really great works of fiction over its history, including great works by Bradbury and Clark and James Bond stories and Norman Mailer, and just all kinds of really great authors appeared in the pages of that magazine because they could get their work in there, and those magazines paid really well. So Stephen King, the story that I've always heard is he tried to get into magazines like Galaxy and If and the magazine of fantasy and science fiction in the early 70s, and was rejected, constantly rejected from them. And so he did find markets with magazines like Cavalier and Gallery. So a lot of his earliest short stories are in basically porn magazines, including Suffer the Little Children. Now, I don't have a copy of that Cavalier. Not going to try and get one. I have a copy of Suffer the Little Children in Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which is a really thick book. And it wasn't published. Wasn't published until I think it's 1980. I think it was 1989. My copy has got a 1993 date. Let me look that up in here. I don't think this is a first edition. And I'm thinking wrong. This is a first edition 1993. Okay. It's got a full line of numbers for the editions. So this is a first edition of Nightmares and Dreamscapes. There is a very collectible limited edition of Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I think it's PS Publishing that did it. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it's a really beautiful book, really expensive book, hard to get a hold of, and I believe now sold out. So good luck getting that one. You can get this. I didn't pay that much for this. I think I paid $30, and it's in really great shape. So, Suffer the Little Children. Miss Sidley is a teacher in, I think, grade school level, and she notices something wrong with the children in her class. She just has a sense, and she turns around from the blackboard, and she thinks she saw one of the kids' faces shifting into something evil and ancient. I'm not going to spoil it any more than that. it is the idea of children being evil is something that occurs again and again and again in the history of horror fiction. You can probably trace it all the way back to Frankenstein. The monster is kind of a child of Dr. Frankenstein, but you definitely see it also in stories like H.P. Lovecraft's Dunwich Horror, and you see it a lot in the 1950s in stories like It's a Good Life by Jerome Bixby, Born of Man and Woman by Richard Matheson, who was a major influence on Stephen King's work. And in more recent stuff like Rosemary's Baby, where the child is born possessed by the devil, The Exorcist, which has a young girl being possessed by the devil, The Omen, where the people have a child that turns out to be the Antichrist, and this is a pretty common theme throughout the history of horror fiction is these evil children. But King, of course, did more than just copy everybody else. He doesn't I don't feel like he introduced any really new ideas into the theme here, but just the way he handled it, just the way he wrote it was really, really good. I stopped short of calling it a top tale, but I enjoyed it a lot and I do recommend it. It's a very good story. And like I say, it's a theme that runs through the history of horror fiction, and it's a good theme. It's a theme that does play on a lot of parents' fears. Is the child going to turn out okay? Is the child growing up okay, or is the child going to turn out? When you have a child, you don't know if your child is going to be the next Hitler. It's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. The next Hitler or the next Dahmer could be coming from you. And so parents have a lot of anxieties having children, raising children, and these horror stories take those anxieties and turn it into a really good horror story. So it's a good theme for horror, one that like I say, a lot of authors have done some really great things with, and it's good to see Stephen King being one of them. So Stuff for the Little Children, I recommend it. I think if you're a King fan, you should be reading this story, and well, probably everything else in Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I haven't, aside from this one story, with these short stories, because I'm going in order of publication, so far this is the only story I've read from Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I've got the rest of the book to go. And I haven't even gone all the way through Skeleton Crew yet, or touched on different seasons, which were published before this. So that's Stuff for the Little Children. The next King story I'll be covering then will be one titled The Fifth Quarter, which was published 2 months later, and which is also collected in Nightmares and Dreamscapes. So that'll be my next Stephen King video, and that will be number 20. So we've come quite a ways. Well, we haven't come quite a ways because the first 9 stories in his bibliography are ones that I have no way of ever getting a hold of. So I started with number 10. So I really have only done 10. Um, but that is pretty good since I haven't been doing these for very long yet for Stephen King. Anyway, have you read Suffer the Little Children? Leave your comments. Leave other comments about Stephen King in general. Don't leave comments if you don't like the way we do our channel. We like the way we're doing our channel. And I'll just delete those comments. But definitely want to hear your thoughts about King and about Stuff for the Little Children and Nightmares and Dreamscapes and horrible children as a theme. Put it all in the comment section of the video for all of us to enjoy. And hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and come on back for the 5th quarter and all the rest of the King I'm going to cover, and all the other authors that I talk about on Telltale Books.